pretty rough. It's a rough business, I will tell you. But the shrill voices that you're hearing this week about tariffs are the same scoundrels and frauds who never thought twice about when the United States lost 90,000 factories and plants. Think of that, 90,000. How do you do 90? If you had a map, a big map the size of that wall, and you had a pin for each factory, you wouldn't have enough room. You think of it, 90,000 factories since NAFTA, the worst trade deal in history, by the way, and we had it terminated. Everybody said you'd never be able to. It had to be terminated by Congress, and it was not easy. It was so bad. You know, the people have a lot of, it's very interesting, they have a lot of power. They have a lot of political power. It's hard to get even a bad deal terminated, but we did do it, and we got USMCA, and that's been really great. But when they cheat, it's not so good. And they cheat. They do cheat. You know, I respect Mexico. I respect Canada. But they cheat like hell. You know, Canada charges for our dairy products 270%. Nobody knows that. They charge you 2% for the first 2 cartons of milk. And after that, you go up to 270. And the press says, they've only charged 2%. No, that's for the first 2 cartons. So it's, you know, we can't have that. And we have to be wise to it and get along with everybody, but we have to call people out. 6 million manufacturing jobs were lost since NAFTA when 21 million illegal aliens poured across our borders. Think of that, many of whom were violent criminals, murderers, drug lords, and the mentally insane. Insane asylums were closed. They used to go crazy when I talk about Hannibal Lecter, the late, great Hannibal Lecter, right? Silence of the Lambs. The fake news would say, why does he talk about that? He's a fictional character. He's actually not. We have many of them that came across the board. It's actually not. But when the people went to the voting booth, then we understood why he talked about that, because they voted for us. They said, we don't want Hannibal Lecter in our country. The great Hannibal Lecter, he was a very important force. But the press would go absolutely crazy if I mentioned Hannibal Lecter's name, because they said he's a fictional character. No, but it was making a point, and the point is they're emptying mental institutions and insane asylums. Not anymore, they're not. Insane asylums into our country. We had numbers, the likes of which nobody's ever seen anything like it. Other countries, I deal with other countries all the time. I am right now on tariffs where they want to make a deal with us. We don't necessarily want to make a deal with them. We're happy the way we are, taking our $2 billion a day. But they want to make a deal with us, and they talk about it, and they say, we cannot believe that they had open borders. These are countries, they have, you know, they have borders, and they don't let people into their country. They can't understand how. They did it because they're sick or they're crazy. There's something really wrong with these people. But the same people now telling me about how to deal with China are the ones who sold out America for decades to China. For decades, they gave up to China. I'm the only one that you know how much? China's paid almost $700 billion in tariffs under me. And then they say, Donald Trump hasn't been tough on China. They say Trump hasn't been tough on Russia. Okay, here's the story. Nord Stream 2. Did anybody ever hear of it? It's the biggest pipeline in the world. I closed it. Russia had it. I closed it. Putin told me that's the worst thing. You're supposed to be friendly with me. I'd hate to see you as my enemy. I closed Nord Stream 2. When Biden got in, he opened it up immediately. It serviced all of Europe, going to Germany. It serviced all of Europe. We closed it, and they say, oh, he wasn't tough on Russia. I was very tough with the sanctions and everything else. And by the way, just for your information, we're trying like hell to get the fighting stopped between Russia and Ukraine. A thing that never would have happened if the election wasn't rigged. We had a rigged election. And we can say it and say it loud and say it proud because the election was rigged and we can't let that stuff happen anymore. Go to paper ballots, go to same-day voting, go to voter ID, go to citizenship. You have to prove your citizenship, a little piece of paper, and you won't have it. Sort of disappointing because a lot of Republican governors, they could do that. Same-day voting, paper ballots, very sophisticated paper, actually. It's all watermarked. You can't cheat. Very hard to cheat. France went that way. They were like us, and they were, having very bad elections, very crooked elections. They had 37 million people. They voted. They had a winner. They had a loser. They went home. That was it. 10 o'clock in the evening, it was over. With us, you ever see, we have these machines that cost a fortune. And they say, we think we're going to have the final vote tally in 2.5 weeks. And wait a minute, this is election day. You ever see where in California they were counting votes 4 weeks later? And then they say, and by the way, all paper costs 8% of the machines. Why is it that Republican governors aren't going to it, okay? What's going on with our Republican governors? If nothing else, you say, even if it was just the same, and it's not, nothing's foolproof when it comes to voting, but it's pretty close. But it costs 8%. In other words, you can have your election 8% the cost of the machines, and you get an accurate count. So it's pretty amazing. They gave us NAFTA, mass illegal immigration, the Democrats did, the fake Paris Climate Accord, and the China's entry into the World Trade Organization. That was a wonderful day for us. China entered the World Trade. They've done pretty good. And, they didn't do things exactly by the books. And they were a developing nation. They still are. They say, we are a developing nation. We should be entitled to more. And our people say, oh, that's right, they're developing. They're not developing, we're developing. Look at some of our inner cities. We got to develop them. But we can't let the Democrats get away with this stuff. But we're developing more than they are. The globalists have been wrong about everything, and so I wear their attack on me because nobody has ever been attacked like a man named Donald J. Trump. In the history of our country, nobody's ever, but I wear it as a badge of honor. Nobody has ever been attacked. I was under more investigations than the late, great Al Capone. He was the most violent criminal. He was the most violent mob boss in history, and I was under investigation far more than him. It wasn't even close. Our opponents are not afraid that our America First policies will fail. They're terrified that our strategy will succeed and we're going to get bigger and stronger and better as a party, and that's what's happening, and that is what's happening. It's going to be something, and I'm actually looking forward to the midterms. I really are. We're going to prove that all of their treasonous years of betrayal will not be forgotten because it's treason. What they did is treason. When they allowed millions of people to pour in through open borders from all over the world, they came. To me, that's treason. What they've done to our country is unthinkable. The money we have to spend to take people out, and then we have judges that say, no, let Trende Araqua come back into our country. They want him to come back in. Killers, they cut off a man's fingers because did you, sir, make a phone call to the police in Colorado? Yes, I did. You've attacked us and you've taken over our building. They took over real estate all over Colorado. You did, right? Give me your hand. Put the hand down. Boom. Cuts off his fingers. And they want him back. And how about the mix-up with the MS-13, where it wasn't a Trende Aragua, it was an MS-13 killer. And they said, oh, they got him mixed up. Let's get him back into our country. No, we need people that are going to love our country. I'm proud to be the president for the workers, not the outsourcers. The president who stands up for Main Street, not Wall Street, who protects the middle class, not the political class, and who defends America, not trade cheaters all over the globe. They're trade cheaters. They cheated on us. They cheated with tariffs on us. They stole our money. They stole our jobs. And now people are going around saying, oh, we're not treating them right now. We're treating them very good, actually. They're lucky we're treating them so good. And, when I have tariffs and I say, well, we're going to charge what they did. We're going to charge what they did. And then I say, I'm going to charge much less than they did. Believe me, we're actually being nice about it. But we're doing very well, better than we've ever done before. My job is not to maximize the profits of outsourcers and these foreign corporations are horrible. It's horrible what they're doing, but we're catching them. We're catching them by the dozens. My job is I have to defend the American dream, and I have to defend the American citizens. That's my job. I have to defend that. The American dream is never mentioned It was mentioned for 4 years, and now it's being mentioned again, but it was never mentioned when we had Sleepy Joe in office. I used to have the hardest thing I had to do with Joe Biden is the nickname. Do I call him Sleepy Joe or Crooked Joe? Could we take a vote, please? Who wants to call him Crooked Joe? Who wants to call him Sleepy Joe? That's my problem. It's like the same. They both work. They both work beautifully. Joe had one ability that I didn't have. He said he was a good golfer. He's terrible. Somebody said the only time I got angry during our debate when he said he was a 6 handicap. He's not a 6. He's not a 36, okay? But he had one ability that I don't have. He was able to go to a beach, bathing suit in tow, because it looked like it was actually falling off. But he'd go, had a hard time walking through the sand because, sand is heavy on your feet. Carrying one of those 6-ounce chairs that are made out of aluminum that if you weigh a little bit too much, it just cracks in the middle when you sit down. And he could sit down in a beach with photographers on the beach. He's the president, so he had a minimum of photographers, but he still had photographers. And he could fall asleep. Who the hell could do that? Who could fall asleep? And he'd turn around and drool would be coming out. He didn't care. His wife didn't care. It's an ability that I could never fall asleep under those circumstances. I'd be very conscious of my body and what we look like. I'd be sitting up like this. Then I'd say, darling, it's time to go. Let's get out of here. Well, it wouldn't most people. This guy could go to the beach, and he was out in seconds. Guys are shooting him. He'd be in the papers the next day, eyes closed, mouth open. The United States has been getting ripped off for 50 years, and we're simply not going to take it anymore, and that's what's happening right now. In 1950, the United States dominated global auto production, producing more than 75% of all of the cars on Earth. Think of that, 75% and even higher before that. Today we produce 11%, while China produces 3 times more than we do. Let me tell you something. With the tariffs that we're doing, as you know, we have tariffs on automobiles, aluminum, steel, separate from the other tariffs, the baseline we call it. Companies are pouring back into our country with plants. There's a run on sites. There's a run on old plants. Most of them are being ripped down for new plants. They've stopped building in Mexico, 4 or 5 plants, and they're all coming into the United States. I know what the hell I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. And you know what I'm doing, too. That's why you vote for me. And the chip makers are coming in. They're all coming in. We've never had anything like this. We have investment, they think, of about $7 trillion. And that's been in a month and a half. Think of that. For the first, you got to give me a little time to get warmed up with that. So let's take the first couple of weeks off. For about a month and a half, we got almost $7 trillion spoken for. Trillion. We've never had that. I don't know if we've ever had it any time. But if you go back and look at Biden and these other campaigns, any of them, they didn't have those numbers for the year. These are the biggest chip makers in the world, the biggest auto manufacturers in the world. $7 trillion of investment, and that means jobs. I look at it differently, not investment. I look at it as jobs. And they're coming in at levels that we've never seen before. And it is true that Mexico, they've stopped building plants, and those plants are now going to be built in the United States of America. So it's pretty exciting. All because of 2 things. They want to be nice to me. They say, sir, because of November 5th, the election, and because of tariffs. I said, in that order? And the smart ones say, yes, sir. First was that you got elected, and second was tariffs. And I'll accept that, But I will tell you because of tariffs. But I'm the only one that would have done the tariffs because everybody was afraid. They were afraid of being criticized because the globalists will go after you. For 7 decades, American ships have patrolled the seas. American troops have kept the pace and peace. And American wealth has enriched the globe. But despite all we have given to them, You will not find an American car in Berlin, in Tokyo, in Seoul, in Shanghai, not a car. I used to say to Angela Merkel, Angela, how many Chevrolets do we have in Berlin? Why, none, Donald, none. That's right, Angela, you got it. How many Chevrolets do you think we have in Munich, Angela? None, Donald. I said, you sent us 7 million cars last year. So we're going to start buying American-made cars or cars that are manufactured in America. And if you can do it, not part of what I was going to say, but one of the best things that I think I've come up with is interest deductions. If you buy a car that's made in America, you get an interest deduction on the money you borrow. And I love it. I hope you can do it, Mike. I hope you can do it, because I haven't bugged you about that. I've been talking about no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. And I haven't really been as strong on this one, but it's only because it gets a little bit long, you know. But if you think of it, you buy a car, you borrow money, and you get a deduction on that money if the car is made in America. I'm thinking that will not cost you 10 cents. You'll make money with that one. I think you'll make money actually in a certain way with the other three also. I think they're very important, and they were part of our campaign. I was going to say before that in Nevada, that when I came up with the no tax on tips, I think that's why we won by a massive amount. And interestingly, they came up about a month and a half later. She was making one of her few speeches. She didn't speak too much for a reason, good reason. She was making a speech, and in the middle she said, oh, and by the way, we will have, everyone's falling asleep, we will have no tax on tips. That place booed the hell out of it. They said, you're a little late on that one, because I was worried they'd copy me. You know, it was so good. You know how it actually happened? Maybe I should tell the story quickly. I was in my building in Las Vegas. We have a great restaurant there. And this young, beautiful waitress, and you're not allowed to say beautiful because that's the end of your political career. If you call a young woman beautiful, that's the end of your career. But what the hell? She was beautiful. So she came up to me. And she said, hello, sir. It's so nice to have you at the hotel. I said, thank you. I had a group of people, some political people, actually. It was very interesting. And I said, how's everything going? She said, oh, it's so tough. They're after my tips. Who's after? The government. They're after my tips, constantly after my tips. They're after all of us for the tips. She said, sir, we should have no tax on tips. I said, say it again. What? We should have no tax. She said it. This was my consultant, a waitress from my hotel. Most people go out and spend millions of dollars to come up with an idea. I said, she just said no tax on tips. That's the coolest thing I've ever heard. So I went outside. There were a lot of, we finished our wonderful meal, steak, went outside, and there were a lot of cameras, as there always are, unfortunately. I say, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a new policy all over the country, but specifically in Nevada. There will be no tax on tips, right? And the cameras went wild. Click, 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 click. And we won the state by a lot, so I don't know. So I have to find that waitress and thank her. She was my consultant, except I didn't pay her $2 million like the other consultants that we all get screwed by. Even worse than the tariffs other countries impose are the non-monetary barriers. That's a non-monetary. These are not financial. These are other things, what they do so that you can't get your product in that country. And China, as you know, is one of the big offenders. And it's not all China. Look, I get along with President Xi. I have over the years. But, you know, you just, when COVID came, that was the end. That was it. That was called the bridge too far. But I've always had a good relationship with a very smart guy, loves his country. I love our country. So, you know, we love our country. He loves his. I tell that to other leaders. You got to fight for your country. It's you're not going to fight for us. But we can't fight for you. We're fighting for other countries. We're trying to make them great without making us great. But those days are over. They steal our intellectual property. They rob our trade secrets. They manipulate their currency to levels that have never been seen before. Today it was announced that China is reducing its currency. Did you see that? Big. In other words, they're going to make up for it. They got every trick in the book. I'll tell you, they are great. You got to hand it to them. They're manipulating their currency today. as an offset against the tariffs. Not supposed to do that. The game isn't supposed to be played that way. It makes it very hard for us. But in the end, it's not good because they have to buy oil. See, we don't need oil. We don't need oil and gas. We have more than any other country. They have to buy it. That's where it hurts them when they do that. It costs them twice as much. And they ship their products through every one of our trading partners, running up our deficits with these countries. They sell a lot. You know, when you put a tariff on them, they sell it like with steel. They were dumping tremendous amounts of steel into our country during my term. I saved every steel mill. We only have steel mills because of what I did. I put a high tariff on them, 25 and then 50%, and it stopped. It stopped. They were dumping so much steel, we would have lost every single steel mill. The people that like me best are the people in the steel business, but I think the auto business is going to be right there. I think chips are going to be there. I think pharmaceuticals are going to be there because, you know, we don't make our own pharmaceuticals, drugs, and other things to get better. They're made in other countries, and you pay a number. I mean, the same package in our country compared to like London and other places is sometimes 10 times more. 10 times more. Something that sells for $88 in London sells for $1,300 here, made in the same factory by the same company. And that's over. I told them all that's over. They put all of their research and development money. They put everything. But what they don't tell you is that these other countries are smart. They say you can't charge more than $88, otherwise you can't sell your product. And the drug companies listen to them. But we're going to do something that we have to do. We're going to tariff our pharmaceuticals, and once we do that, they're going to come rushing back into our country because we're the big market. The advantage we have over everybody is that we're the big market. So we're going to be announcing very shortly a major tariff on pharmaceuticals, and when they hear that, they will leave China, they will leave other places because they have to sell. Most of their product is sold here, and they're going to be opening up their plants all over the place in our country. We're going to be announcing that, so that's breaking news. Ladies and gentlemen, we have breaking news. That's what's going to happen. What other presidents allow China to get away with is absolutely criminal, but I'm not like the other presidents, and it's not going to happen under President Trump. It's just not going to happen. After all of the abuses they've perpetrated, China's attempting to impose additional unjustified tariffs. Just so you understand, they all got rich because of tariffs. You know, now when we do it, oh, it's so terrible what Trump is doing. It's so terrible. They got rich. And not only China, many countries. I mean, you look at Vietnam, you look at so many, I could name 50 right now. Biden couldn't do that. He couldn't name any. Name one country. Name any country. What's the name of our country? He doesn't know. That's why additional tariffs on Chinese goods are in place effective midnight tonight at 104%. Until they make a deal with us, that's what it's going to be. I think they'll make a deal at some point. China will. They want to make a deal. They really do. They want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get it started because they're proud people. China will now pay a big number to our Treasury. This is all taxes. And don't let them keep telling you that this is a tax on our people. I hate that. You know, they say it's a tax. No. Often, much of it is paid. And hey, look what happened during my first term. We had no inflation, and yet I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs and taxes from China. No other president got 10 cents in tariffs or taxes from China. I got hundreds of billions of dollars. Hundreds of billions of dollars. And I still got along with them because they understood what they were doing was wrong. They understood it. When you explain it, they sit up, they say, I've had numerous leaders tell me, you're right, sir. I was waiting for you to bring this up. Because some of the trade deals that were made by predecessors as president were so bad, you almost wonder who did these deals. They were either crooked or stupid. There can be nothing else. They were either stupid or crooked. It's terrible, but it's all being changed. I changed a lot of it in the first 4 years, but it's all being changed. You know, in the first 4 years, we had the most successful country in history in terms of economics. We had 88% increase in the stock markets. We had an 88% increase. There's never been any president that had an 88% increase. We had 88%. And there are a lot of happy people. And I think we're going to do much better than that this time, because this time I'm doing what I want to do with respect to the tariffs. I think we're going to do much better. And just remember the numbers. When you get up to $2 billion a day, $2 billion a day, they're saying, sir, can't be that, can it? I said, yeah, it can. It's the biggest transaction ever made. This is bigger than any deal you guys